Hello, my name is Ngom Gafor, and I edit Africally Speaking. With some of the world's most prominent economies, expanding markets, and a large young population, Africa is poised for global leadership. But security risks remain a threat to its progress. From Al-Shabaab attacks in Kenya to Boko Haram bombings in Nigeria and neighboring countries, terrorism is proving an increasing challenge for the continent. As its leaders seek assistance internationally, security experts David Otto, Chris Samuel, and Raphael Akazara argue that Africa's solutions lie within its borders. At the University of East London, I sat down with David Otto and Chris Samuel. My education on imaginative counterterrorism started with an explanation of what their company TGS is about. Which actually brings me very nicely to my next question, because I know one of your philosophies is that intelligence is not enough when you fight counterterrorism. Imagination is very important.
Yes.
It sounds to me like, we need seriously imaginative solutions here. So I want to ask, how are you guys going to imagine us out of this one?
When we say, it's important, when we say imagination is the way forward, what we try to say is, if you look at attacks like 9/11, or the 7/7 bombing, or even the attack in Bama, which killed more than 2,000 people in northern Nigeria, which was not spoken about. The reason why that happened is not because there was no security, it is because of lack of imagination. Which means, the security services do not actually think that something of that nature can happen. So the way forward is for people to think of the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So what we're bringing on board is the idea of brainstorming and seeing things at the end at the very beginning. So the idea of imagination is to say security has to be a priority. People have to think about what can happen before it happens, because once you think about what can happen before it happens, then you can have measures in place. You should not only be reactive when something happens. So you have to be very, very proactive. So what we're encouraging African governments to do is to make sure that, especially in Nigeria, Cameroon, and all these African countries, none of them left behind, they have to be imaginative in terms of how they can all collaborate together. Because if you're only fighting Boko Haram from an intelligence perspective, or you're only fighting Boko Haram from a Nigerian perspective or a Cameroon perspective, you will never win. Because what happens is, you attack them in Nigeria, they'll go to Cameroon. If you attack them in Cameroon, they'll go to Niger. You attack them in Niger, they'll go to Libya. So there has to be a nuanced and a global approach, whereby all the security services have to sit on one table and have a very, very powerful, what you call national intelligence estimate on the capabilities of Boko Haram, understanding the opportunity theory. Where can they attack next? Once you understand the opportunity theory, and then you understand what is their motivation, why are they fighting? So if you have all these issues put in place, and you have all these issues, drafted, then you can have a very, very nuanced and holistic approach, to this problem.
Wow.
I can add to that. What has happened in Nigeria in the last few years. There's a group called the CJTF. I don't know whether you heard about them.
No.
It's the Civil Joint Task Force. They have been at the forefront of the war against Boko Haram. If any success that can be attributed to the government now is being carried out by this group. And there are a bunch of they are not highly trained. Few of them are trained. I think they're about, they have official trained CJTF, about 22,000 of them.
Yes.
But they have unofficial up to about 30,000 of them.
Local militias.
But if you look at the way they've been operating and the kind of valuable information that they're giving to the Nigerian government, you think that maybe they should be able to take the group and use it to create what we call the domain awareness, in Nigeria, to develop a comprehensive program whereby, part of maybe having, what is the word now? Imagination is to be able to have the same similar group of the CJTF in Lagos, Ibadan, everywhere. You understand? They'll be able to collect intelligence for the federal government. But they are not doing that, so they don't have that imagination that things get worse.
Exactly.
But it is getting worse because immediately after the government took over, Buhari took over, this group were muted and they silent and they waited to see, what's going to be the policy of the new administration towards them. We lost the window of opportunity to be able to engage with them, because by that time, when they were waiting, they were moving because they knew that the focus is going to be in the northeast.
Yeah.
So they move sleeper cells all over Nigeria now, in Lagos, Ibadan, in places where otherwise they won't be, if we're able to use that imagination that Dave just mentioned. You understand?
Exactly.
So the security are not using imagination. What will happen? So they shouldn't have gotten worse. Should have gotten better if we used imagination.